In explaining others' actions, we frequently commit the fundamental attribution error. We attribute others' behavior so much to their inner dispositions that we discount important situational forces. The error occurs partly because our attention focuses on the person, not on the situation. A person's race or sex is vivid and gets attention. The situational forces working on that person are usually less visible. Slavery was often overlooked as an explanation for slave behavior. The behavior was instead attributed to the slave's own nature. Until recently, the same was true of how we explained the perceived differences between women and men. Because gender role constraints were hard to see, we attributed men's and women's behavior solely to their innate dispositions. The more people assume that, the stronger are their stereotypes and the greater an acceptance of racial inequities. That we discount important situational forces. The error occurs partly because our attention focuses on the person, not on the situation. A person's race or sex is vivid and gets attention. 이런 거에 먼저 attention을 가지게 되고 the situational forces working on that person are usually less visible. Slavery was often overlooked as an explanation for slave behavior. The behavior was instead attributed to the slave's own nature. Until recently, the same was true of how we explained the perceived differences between women and men, because gender role constraints were hard to see. 이게 영향을 주었고, we attributed men's and women's behavior solely to their innate dispositions. The more people assume that 그들의 뭔가 사회적 그거가 성격 같은 거에 영향을 주었다. These situational behaviors have an innermost influence. Dispositions are a product of nurture over nature. 근데 disposition이 뭔지 모르겠어. 이 단어를 몰라. Humans are innately judgmental 이거 아니고 Human traits are fixed dispositions 이거 아니고 Actions define people's gender roles. 이것도 아닌 것 같고 Dispositions are a product of nurture over nature. Situational behaviors have an innermost influence. 이거 같아. 기대하는 역할을 내재화한다. Even though philosophy is a communal enterprise dedicated to exploring our justification for using the criteria we use to distinguish between, for example, moral and immoral actions, truth and falsity, reality and appearance, and more, philosophical discourse. So a philosopher might put forward correspondence to reality as a criterion for distinguishing a true belief from a false one. In order to determine whether that is an adequate criterion, other philosophers would critically discuss that proposal, and one might criticize it by pointing out that we have no means of telling whether or not an idea corresponds to reality because our access to reality is always mediated by our ideas. And that's exactly how a philosophical discussion develops, with all the parties to it advocating their own point of view, although they can jump ship and switch to the other side at the same time that they are committed to jointly figuring out the correct answer to the question. Even though philosophy is a communal enterprise dedicated to exploring our justification for using the criteria we use to distinguish between, for example, moral and immoral actions, truth and falsity, reality and appearance, and more, philosophical discourse proceeds by argumentation, 괜찮을 것 같고, requires using precise terms, 거 아니고, takes place by using analogies, 또 아닌 analogy가 뭔지 몰라 근데. Has nothing to do with the real world, no. Focuses on accepting rather than creating ideas. 이것도 아닌 것 같아. 어쨌든 토론과 논쟁을 통해서 발전해 나감. Robert Putnam, a Harvard political scientist, Cass Sunstein, a respected legal scholar and a former senior official in the Obama administration, and Eli Pariser, the director of MoveOn.org, are among those who warned that cable and web-based media are creating and reinforcing a series of identity ghettos. Their argument is a variant of the old selective exposure thesis, which choose to be exposed only to media that 우리가 원하는 것만 노출시키길 바래요. Their concern is that as people congregate in their own comfortable media enclaves, the opportunity to meet and exchange ideas with those who have different views is vanishing. Political activists, hockey fans, and followers of every imaginable show, game, music video, or celebrity all gravitate not to great public spaces. gravitate이란 단어 몰라? To great public spaces, but to the limited and protected confines of their own groups. As Pariser argues, by definition, a world constructed from the familiar is a world in which there's nothing to learn. For Pariser, the danger is that you can get stuck in a static or ever-narrowing version of yourself, an endless U-loop. In the end, the user has become the content. So their argument is a variant of the old selective exposure thesis. We choose to be exposed only to media that present distorted images of the world, no. Promote tensions among the audience, no. Reinforce the views that we already have, 뭐 괜찮을 것 같지만. Emphasize the importance of collective thinking, no. Fall under quality standards defined by authorities. 갖고 있는 것만 강화한다. Social infrastructures that tend to discourage interaction and the formation of strong ties. One recent study, for instance, shows that a daycare center that encourages caregivers and parents to walk in and wait for their children, often inside the classroom and generally at the same time, fosters more social connections and supportive relationships than one where managers allow parents to come in on their own schedules and hurry through drop-off and pick-up so they can quickly return to their private lives. Because much of our hard infrastructure, highways, airports, food supply chains, and the like, is designed to promote better circulation of people or vital resources, it can accelerate the trend of social atomization. Think, for example, about the contrast between a village where everyone gets their water from the same well and a city where everyone gets their water from faucets in their private homes. The social infrastructures that tend to discourage interaction and the formation of strong ties. 이건 뭔가 diminishes or undermines. Invades privacy? No. Foster competition? No. Increase interdependence? No. Promote efficiency? No. Well, require consistency? No. What am I doing? Increase interdependence. Social infrastructures. 그러면 social infrastructure invade privacy, foster competition. 나 다시 읽어야 되겠어. Discourage interaction and the formation of strong ties. Social infrastructures that promote efficiency. 이거네. 그렇지. 이거지. 그러면 5, 6, 7, 8번만 5번에 틀렸어. 이게 human traits are 이거를 fixed dispositions라고 가정할수록 the stronger their stereotypes가 된다고 하는 거니까 반대로 골랐고 6번에는 답이 1번. 7번에는